Dr. Sam Nujoma, Namibia's first president and founding father, played a major role in the country's fight for independence and its development afterward. His strong belief in self-determination, love for his country, and dedication to building a better Namibia continue to inspire many. Today, young people in Namibia face big challenges like unemployment, gender inequality, and food insecurity. But Dr. Nujoma's values, which are hard work, discipline, and strong leadership, can teach them how to make a real difference. In a fast-changing world with new technology, shifting economies, and ongoing social struggles, Dr. Nujoma's focus on education, self-sufficiency, and agriculture offers valuable lessons. They build a better future where young Namibians can draw from his vision by promoting gender equality, national unity, and smart use of the country's resources. I'm Jonas MBAMBO alongside Joyce Rokoro, your sign language interpreter for this episode. Welcome to Situation Critical. In this discussion, we bring together influential leaders from different sectors to reflect on Dr. Nujoma's legacy and explore how his values can shape a progressive, resilient youth. Joining us on my immediate left are Willem Amutenya, SPYL leader and an MP in waiting. And on the line, all the way from Rundu, we're joined by Emma Moteka, SWAPO MP in the National Council. And last but not least, we're joined by an elder, Commander Erastus Neronga, a former Plan Regional Commander. Gentlemen, lady, thank you so much for making time to join us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Much obliged. As they say, ladies first. Emma, good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes, good evening, Jonas. I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you loud and clear. Thank you so much. I think a good start to this conversation would be as a woman in leadership. I would like you to share your thoughts around the vision that he had. Even before talking about women empowerment in the 1950s, 1960s was popular. I mean, even today, when people talk about women empowerment, it's met with a lot of resistance by some sectors of society. But what does it say about Dr. Sam Nujoma's vision when he saw the importance of empowering women in all spheres?
First of all, thank you so much for having me, Jonas, and good evening to everyone. It's such an honor to really be part of this platform. I was listening to you ask me the question, Jonas, and I was just, reflecting to say how beautiful this moment is, because you mentioned a specific year, and I think I wasn't even, a parent's dream by that time. I wasn't even born. And I'm looking at myself at this point in time, being a young lady, being in leadership, and knowing that I fall, or I think for a lack of a better explanation to say, I fall part of the plan that our founding father has had for, woman empowerment. And I really would want to say that I think our time is gone in terms of us having that conversation of just saying woman empowerment. Mm-hmm. The time is now for us to start implementing it and putting mechanisms to make sure that we actually start walking the talk. And it takes us as the women to really hold hands. I think that's the first step that we need to start moving into, knowing that we're, inspired by a man who has laid the foundation. It wasn't a lady that laid the foundation. It was a man that laid the foundation who believed in us. And we shouldn't, disappoint him or betray his trust in women empowerment. And we should, in turn, also do the same to the younger generations and the generations to come, to create a platform where we are able to prepare the young ladies to say, this is our time to take up position. This is our time to take up leadership and to do them and to take necessary steps to prepare ourselves and capacitate ourselves.
Mm-hmm. Thank you so much. Willem, one of the hallmarks of the founding president of this nation was he believed in self-sustenance. He believed that if you cannot take care of yourself, no one is going to respect you. And we see it in the geopolitics. We find that Russia goes on in the manner that they do. Mm-hmm. China goes on in the manner that they do when they are confronted by the Western powers, because they can feed themselves. Yeah. That's the first step. How important is that, for us as a country, and how far would you say, have we come, to help realize that vision of understanding the power, of growing your own food, is concerned?
Yeah, no, I think, Jonas, this is quite a very interesting discussion that we have here. more especially to us as young people, reflecting back from the legacy of Tatekulu Nujoma. And when it comes to agriculture, I think all of us can agree today that Tatekulu Nujoma was very much passionate about agriculture. And I think going back to the history, one can relate to the way he was actually even hands-on on the agriculture, the way he made sure that we had, we have the green schemes in the Kavango regions. He was, the man ahead of the Karimbeza, rice production. So that already tells us the importance of agriculture to him and to us so. In that, I want to say, he actually believed that independence alone without, food production, it's actually nothing, it's actually meaningless. And that is why then, for us as young people, we have that opportunity to ensure that we then have food production. The fact that we have land available, though not fully accessible, because that we need also to look into that aspect of the land availability, the land accessibility. However, that must be an understanding by every young person that the food that we consume, that the population of this country consumes, it requires to be actually produced by ourselves. And that obviously tells us that all of us would have to play that role in either being the producers, either being the initiators, either being the investors, and I think the innovators as well. So I think we should all understand that we have that responsibility.
Tata Ngonga, when you joined the struggle for this country, you were a young man, and you still look very young for your age. I don't know how old you are, but you look still very youthful. But I want to understand, take us a bit back in history when the first time you heard about this young man who had come from Onganjera, looking after livestock, landing in Walvis Bay, interacting with people from different countries of the world, and starting to realize, no, man, this can't be life. There's no way that we can be so oppressed by a minority while we are the majority in this country. But talk to us about your experience when you heard about Dr. Sam Nujoma and and his vision. There are people from the stories that we have heard over the month that who thought this man was crazy. How do you dare go against South Africa? Who do you think you are? What was it about him that attracted you to him and also being influenced to join the struggle?
Dr. Sam Nujoma is a different person in terms of his thinking, in terms of his visions, in terms of strategies. Dr. Nujoma, when I know him of course when I was very young. And then I continued to engage him as we are going on. The most positive aspects of it is that he has got commitment and he's determined to achieve whatever he wants to achieve. Therefore, we can see that his visions for the independence of Namibia, it took decades and decades. But at the end of the day, that has been realized. And even during that liberation struggle, you can see that our leader has got a vision. And he has got a plan. What will happen after Namibia got its independence. Therefore, what we must understood of all us is that we had a leader. We had a leader of commitment. We had a leader, a visionary leader. And more important is that he knew how to achieve whatever to be achieved. For example, if you like to convince people to support SWAPO as a liberation movement, to support his vision and strategy, the first thing he have to consider is about how to go about. But he was a charismatic leader. Charisma make it possible for him to talk and everybody to listen.
Yeah.
Charisma make him a good leader to succeed. That's why we can see that when, for us who have been with him during that time of the liberation struggle, we happen just to be listened to his statements, to his commandments, without any write-up. Dr. Nujoma never had a written statement during our liberation struggle there, unless maybe it was a written statement,
Yeah.
maybe going to the United Nations of Geneva. But with us when we were there, have never a written statement, but he was charismatic. You recall, even when he addressed the students and even directors at the United Nations Institute for Namibia.
Yeah.
You know, you can see that videos. It's a charismatic person. You have no way not to listen, and you have no way not to come out and say that, this one is not true. It's true, and he did it.
Emma, are you still there?
Yes, I'm still here.
Yes. You spoke about how the foundation that women empowerment in Namibia is based on was founded or established by a man in the form of Dr. Sam Shafishuna Nujoma, which I believe at that time also might have been opposed by many. But time has gone on now. We are, in a few weeks' time, we will inaugurate the first female president of this country in the form of Netumbo Nandi Ndaitwah, which shows that we have come a long way compared to some democracies that are way older than us. America has never had, for example, a female president, but they did have a VP after over 20-something years. But I would like to find out, what have women like yourself and others done, not only the space of politics, but also in the space of business, to empower other women, to instill that sense of confidence, to tell them that you too are qualified to take up space in what has been known, as a man's world, especially when you look at it in politics and, of course, also in business as well. Talk to us about that.
Thank you so much for that question, Jonas. I think what I can strongly stand on is mentorship. There is something that we are busy doing as a group of women where we have dedicated our time to really mentor not only the young ladies, because you'll be very surprised to know that it's not only about the youth, it's generally about women. And we've identified that there's a lack of sort of, one would want to term it as self-confidence, because for the longest time, women have not been given the space on the table. So we're having conversations, we're having capacity building sessions where we speak to young ladies and, just generally women, to motivate them to say, if I can do it, then you can do it. Surely it's not easy, like you stated, Jonas, to say it's, something that has been categorized as, it's a man thing, or we are trying to find our space and trying to find our seats at a table that is full of men. But I must also state, Jonas, that I want us to also shift from the narrative of, the fact that people think that majority of the men are actually against women empowerment. And I really want to take this moment to take my hat off for men that are there, that are actually supporting and helping us to empower women, And we really need to say thank you to them, because without them, I don't think we would have gotten to the stage that we currently are at this point in time. And us having the first female president in the country should really set the tone for any other Namibian woman to know that if Her Excellency can do it, then anything is possible for me, but not only within the political space, within any other space. And for us to really make sure that we rise to the horizon, to have self-confidence and to know that we can do it, and to hold hands most especially, because I've realized that in most cases, women do not have, each other's back as we should. And I think that's something that we really need to really work on as women.
Thank you, Emma. Willem, I'd like for you maybe just to add on what she said, if you can, of course, since you are in the structures of the Youth League, which has always also seen a rise in many senior positions being taken up by women. Talk to us about that, and what is the general consensus, amongst the male peers in the organization, in as far as the empowerment of women is concerned, and why it should be prioritized.
Jonas, number one, I think Emma is just acknowledging the fact that we, for instance, from the SWAPO party perspective, of which I'm coming from, structures, we have already long back come up with a 50-50 policy that we have, the zebra style, to say that if it has been difficult for women to obviously get an opportunity, then the policy have to determine to say that when we have the first person is a lady, the second person must be a man. In that we are saying equal opportunities for both. And that obviously on its own have made it possible to support, in fact, general support, which all of us from the party perspective, men and women, understand our very own policies, and up to today we are fully implementing that. And in that, I think it's another demonstration that everyone too supports it. That is why we have never much have seen the violation to that policy that we have. So, yeah.
But Nwanga, the world is changing, and it's changing at such a rapid pace that we don't know what to implement and what to throw out, and as far as our identity is concerned. Now, the late president always emphasized on the importance of maintaining our number one cultural beliefs in where we come from, and we have seen the revival of many and the revival of many traditional activities coming back, whether it's now the Totem Festival or whether it's the recognition of various traditional authorities, and also allowing them the space to get their voices heard. But young people, on the other hand, who are growing up in this world where digital transformation is going on at such a quick pace, somehow feel that there's a disconnect. As a matter of fact, I was talking to some young people, and they were so impressed by some of the things that they heard about Dr. Sam Nujoma. Was like, but how? We never taught these things in school. How come is it that we don't know this man in the way that he's being portrayed now? What do you have to say about that? Is it maybe time that we start honoring men of his caliber and women of his caliber, earlier before they leave us, so that the younger generation can carry that story on? Because when history is not passed on, we tend to forget. And we tend to forget somebody might come, step in, and tell an entirely different story. Talk to us about that.
No, really, Jones, you are correct. With Nujoma, his legacy, the strength of Nujoma, Dr. Nujoma, is that whatever he has to engage in, he has to first check what happened during the period of our forefathers. Always when he is addressing us, when we were young and old, he had to start with our forefathers, the heroes, the Namibian heroes, fighting against colonialism. And we start from Hendrik Witbooi, Maharero, Mandumende Mfayo, all those things. And even when we happen to be privately with him, he has to educate you how our forefathers became heroes and how and where they have succeeded. I think Nujoma was more on cultural traditional values in his resolve to wage any struggle and succeed. I think with the current generations, it's a matter of that we are doing very little in our education institutions. In fact, we are failing the young generations. They are not taught about their history. They are taught much more about foreign history and even inferior aspects of the history. Therefore, all what we should do is to start Let us start from the legacy of Nujoma. The legacy of Dr. Nujoma is that whatever he happened to say, there is, a phrase or 10 to learn from. Of course, during our liberation struggle, the liberation struggle one, he always educates us that the struggle is long and bitter. And even Andimba Toivo say that, but I know our people will wage this struggle. And even Dr. Nujoma always reminds us what Ipumbu Shirongo have said when he was captured by the enemy. He's saying that, fine, you arrest me today, but I know that the young generations are coming. That's what happened. I think the problem we have is that when our generations, the youth generations, are taking something, they are not inspired by some commitments and phrases of the old heroes we are referring to. I should say that with Dr. Nujoma, he was very much gifted on that. And that was the catalytic agent of Dr. Nujoma to succeed. I would like only to advise the young generations that, yes, during the morning time of Dr. Self-sufficiency and Nujoma, we had a lot of statements, tributes, made about Dr. Nujoma. And this should be the starting points of all of us to make self-corrections. By doing that, we could be in the position for the young generation and scholars. You should just write the memo about Nujoma, just basing on what we have been, listening about. And then for those of us who know and who have been there, we'd be in the position to verify. Don't be afraid about writing something we thought that is not correct. But the verification is the most important.
Absolutely. Emma, Nkonga talks about the struggle being long and bitter. As an independent country and as young people, the question would be then, what is our struggle? And how do I partake in the second phase of the liberation of this country, which mostly focuses on, the economic emancipation? What are your thoughts around that?
Well, just like you said, Jonas, our struggle is definitely economical emancipation. And it first starts with us educating ourselves, making sure that, before I make this statement, it's very interesting because education was something that was very, very close to Dr. Nujoma's heart. For me, I fail at words to actually describe the inspiration that, he has set, the tone that he has set for the young people, especially when it comes to education, being, one of the oldest people, if I'm not mistaken, in his class during, his studies at UNAM. And I think that is where we should start as young people, to make sure that we receive, or rather educate ourselves in order for us to understand where we need to go, where we are, and what it is that we need in order for us to win this war. The liberation struggle had, a physical enemy that you could physically see. With ours, it's a little bit different. So it comes with a set of skills, a set of knowledge for us to be able to win this war. And we need to work together as young people for us to be able to overcome this war. We need to start thinking out of the box. We need to start finding ways for us to be able to stand on our own 2 feet. The Founding Father really inspired us. He was really not a person who said, he didn't have that leadership style of, thinking to say, this is not possible. He was always optimistic. He always thought out of the box. He always went out of his way to find ways to make something happen. And I think if we could move in that line and, inherit that from him, I think we have a long way, we have a short way to go in order for us to actually get there. Something that always holds very close to my heart is I saw a video of him. I think they were setting up a railway, and he had a helmet as well as a shovel, and he physically was, digging and assisting as the people were setting up the railway. I think these are things that we as young people must also emanate from and say, if he was a whole president and he could do that, he was setting out that message of saying, for the people, by the people, then who are we to do anything less? So I think that's the right way, Jonas.
All right, thank you. Willem, I'd like to get your thoughts around how we can cultivate that environment of where we have the older generation's experience and our energy, and our innovation. How can we create an environment where those two can come together and understand that, look, yes, we know this road, we've been here before. Don't drive too fast, young man. Take your time. And also understand that this is coming from a good space. It's coming from a place that, look, if you hurry too much, you might crash. We've been here before. The enemy is coming in a different form. And Dr. Sam Nujoma also remind us that, the neo-colonialists, they never really left. They're still there. They've just evolved. How can we cultivate an environment where we can have healthy dialogue with our older generation, learning from their experience, but also them understanding that, hey, there are many ways to skin a cat. Let's listen to what Willem, what Emma has to say for us to help this problem that is common to all of us as Namibians.
Very good. I think, Jonas, the first thing we should possibly look at is the fact that the elders, the generation should acknowledge the capacity of the young people. When that is acknowledged, that we can do, that we can also be welcomed around tables of discussions, decision-making, and then followed by possibly mentorship, that we as young people also feel that we are welcomed, our skills, our capacity, having been educated by our very own system for the past 35 years, we have acquired the relevant skills and knowledge to advance our socio-economic case we are talking about. So the moment our skills and knowledge are acknowledged and our capacities are acknowledged by the generation, I believe we'll comfortably as well be in that, have that opportunity to bring about our abilities and be able to obviously contribute to our socio-economic advancement. So if we are not comfortably believing that there's expectations from us, that welcoming atmosphere, then it becomes difficult. However, from us as well as young people, from our side as well, we also need to do our work. That I mean, we need to read more and get to understand how and when things should be done, so that we also demonstrate what we are able to do. That we should also demonstrate that we can take and be in charge of our country in terms of leadership. When we are given responsibilities, we should as well demonstrate that we can do, so that the elders should also be able to have trust and welcome us and direct us and so forth. But the most important thing as well, we need to read that history. For instance, if we really want to advance, and more especially the young people of our generation, if we can all take time and read the history of Tatekulu Nujoma, we can learn quite a lot of the principles that he had that made him, come up with an organization that remains a strong organization that liberated the country and actually brought development for the last 35 years. And an organization that have stood the test, leading Namibia for the 35 years. I think that is a legacy that we should also read on Tatekulu Nujoma's history, so that we can apply those principles, those techniques that he had in advancing our socio-economic advancement.
I'd like to be philosophical in this question. I was watching a very interesting story that was done by Julina Fuka, an NBC reporter, where the story focused on all the Pan-Africanists, the Robert Mugabes, the Julius Nyereres, the Kaundas, and of course, the last man who was standing now, Dr. Sam Shavishuna Nujoma, and had me wonder, what does it take to be an Agustino Neto? What does it take to be a Kenneth Kaunda or a Kwame Nkrumah? What happens in life? Are we born? Are they born like that, or is it circumstances that threw them into becoming those individuals? I've always wanted to get those thoughts from an elderly person who had that first-hand experience, not only perhaps with Sam Nujoma, but all the others that you might have seen along the way. Do you ever wonder what elements come together to become a man or an individual of that stature?
Really, the love of the African continent was the source of the emancipation of the whole continent of Africa and even beyond, and even the independence of their individual countries. First, it was love of motherland. Secondly, it is a matter of that, by virtue of their personalities, those leaders, they were not put their own love and interest by heart, but they were more on the African continent. That's why they are talking about patriotic, engagement, so that they can benefit the other, nationalities and feel that they are also human beings. And then colonialism in those countries happened to be the source of morale to the leaders. They are Pan-Africanists because they have morale to see Africa independent. And also, we can see that the way they have succeeded is that they have a proper alliance and a unity of purpose. That's where Dr. Nujoma has started. When they were united, you could not see that this one really is not part of us.
Yeah.
I recall that I have been included in the delegations of Dr. Nujoma to the Organization of African Unity meetings, the Organization of African Unity Liberation Committee, and also various summits, and where these leaders happen to be there. Among those leaders, I know that I have attended some of their summits. But you are inspired by the way they are making contributions. You are inspired by the way they are addressing, what should they address? They address those challenges facing Africa, and they are addressing it just like having one voice. Therefore, we can see that from there, even the imperialists could listen, and they happen to recognize them. That's the only reason why they have succeeded. And I should also state that the cohesion which was created by these leaders, it helped even Namibia and those who happened to become independent later. We happened to benefit much more, because from there we were treated like it's their struggle in the individual countries. They are not saying that because Ghana is independent, now let us having, the interests of Ghana first. It's not looking like.
They were fighting for Namibia, so they were fighting for themselves.
Why? Fighting for the total liberation of the continent of Africa.
Absolutely.
Yes.
All right, thank you. We'll quickly go for a break, and then we'll continue our discussion. If you're just tuning in, watching Situation Critical, we'll be right back after this. Stay tuned. How much time do we have?
1 minute.
No, for us to... 12 minutes, okay, so yeah. Okay, Emma.
Yes.
Hello. I'm just kidding. Can you hear the echo?
Yes, the echo is so bad. I was really distracted and I can still hear myself.
Oh.
Okay, I think I'm just going to have to...
Okay, okay, try again. Hello? Can you hear me now? How's it now?
Still there.
Okay.
But it's okay, Jonas. I think let me just break through it. We're almost done.
Yeah, so we have 12 minutes left, so we'll cut back to you as soon as we come back, and and then we'll soon wrap up the conversation. But just bear in there.
No problem.
Struggle will be long and bitter, even with the echo.
Jonas. Hectic.
Welcome back to Situation Critical. And if you're just tuning in, the topic tonight is all about Dr. Sam Nujoma's impact on the youth and what the youth can learn in order to play their part in ensuring that the country moves forward in the way that himself and many others who came before him had envisioned Namibia to be. And joining us on the line, of course, we lost her a bit there, but she's back, Emma Muteka, the MP, SWAPO MP in the National Council. With the little time that we have left, Emma, welcome back.
Thank you, Jonas.
Mm-hmm. In case you missed out on what we spoke about, we're talking about the importance of creating a fertile and a conducive environment for bridging that intergenerational gap where we have the older generation who have seen much more than we have, and us ourselves as younger people as well who think we know it all, but understanding that we do need each other because we have problems that are common to all of us. We would like to get your 2 cents around how that can be done in a very respectable manner. We know that the expression respect for elders is thrown around so much, but it's seen sometimes on social media that many of us don't have that respect that that the elders demand because of what they have done before us. But talk to us about how you think we can create a conducive environment where each and every Namibian, young and old, feel that they have their place and can, give their contribution.
Thank you so much for that, Jonas. I think, let me start by sharing something that I came across during our morning period. There's a young lady who had, she was brave enough to say, she's apologizing, and she's apologizing to the older generation because she has just discovered or she had just learned the story of our late founding father, the struggles that he had to go through and everything else that he had to go through. And she apologizes for everything that she thought about and everything that she had said. So I would want to think that perhaps the starting point would be to get our elders and the young people at the same table for us to really hear what it is that our elders went through and to appreciate the struggle that we really went through. I think that's the first starting point. Because, just looking at a person and hearing them say one sentence or 2 sentences, I think that is where, what one would want to term disrespect comes from the younger people. That's number one. Number two, there's a very important or something that we are undermining, also allowing the elders to hear from the young people, to also hear, where we are, what we think. And after we've collected all of that, we then will be able to forge forward in the line of intergenerational leadership, where we are able to really understand one another and understand and appreciate the different times. The other day I was just saying, I'm curious to know whether one would want to, look at Namibia and say the other one doesn't need the other, or that the one can just do it on their own, that the generation can just do it on their own. I don't think that's very possible at this point in time. So we must admit that we need one another, but we need to be able to sit at the same table and really listen to one another and see how we're able to meet consensus and meet or rather come up with a formula for us to forge forward intergenerational leadership. The respect, I think, is something that we can really, really work on as young people. But I think the issue with us is more patience. I think we're not a patient generation. When they say Rome was not built in one day, I think we undermine that. And it's something that we really need to go back to the drawing board and reflect on. Rome was really not built in one day, nor was Namibia built in one day. So I think it's patience that we really need, and we need proper understanding, and as well as a lot of empathy. It's a skill that we really, really need to adapt as young people.
Absolutely. Willem, you're one of the many young people that are going to be in Parliament, the August House, a house with so much history. And one would want to know, Statikulu's watching there, together with all the elders that have come, before us. What do you think his expectations would be from young leadership? Especially those who have been saying, no, we're not getting a seat at the table. You're at the table now. What do you think are the expectations from the elders who are looking down on us?
Yes, that is quite a very important question, Jonas. I think, number one, as we have said it earlier, that our fight is socio-economic advancement for people, for our society, for our generation and generations to come. So the young people that are getting to Parliament now, our focus, as you have seen also on our theme for the Swapo Party, it's natural resources and how best the natural resources of this country can benefit our people in terms of, fighting unemployment and improving the lives of our people. So it's looking at policies that can allow investment, and I'm saying our very own investors, our local investors, to invest in our very own economy that creates employment, either in sectors of minerals, in sectors of agriculture, more so in agriculture, that we can have our very own local investors investing in the production of food, that we can even, come up with chains of, value addition of our products to create employment and make sure that everyone is given a chance to enjoy the resources of this country. So the aspect of changing policies, more so to see how best entrepreneurs as well can access funding, can access the market. Because you cannot just tell me, you give me the funds, but you do not make it available or make the business to, where do I send?
Environment,
yes, a creating environment where we can market and sell our products. So those are the policies that we are saying, allowing and making sure that we have investments, our local investors investing in our own resources, so that we create a wealth for our very own people, so that we also make it, there's even a very nice policy that I like most, the local content, we possibly need to review that policy. Is it really benefiting our people? Is it really practical in the manner in which it is now? Because that policy came a long way. However, do we still have our local producers benefiting from that policy, where whatever they are producing is being consumed in the system that we have?
Absolutely.
So I think the policy is more on socio-economic. That is most important.
It is what the quality of debate is that we can expect in Parliament. Then we're really excited to see those ideas being shared in Parliament. But as we end the discussion, I'd like to give the senior on the platform briefly, what should we not take for granted? What should we not take for granted? I mean, you have been on both sides. You've been in the trenches. You've been, in many spaces where people were fighting for the independence of this country. And now you are in an independent Namibia. What is your message to those who haven't seen what you have seen, and what should we not take for granted?
What should not be taken for granted is that as much as we are talking about democracy brought about, our forefathers' independence by our leaders, as much we are talking about that we have good policy instruments, Willem was just talking about the economic empowerment. And now it looks like the young generations, when they see the economic empowerment talked about, they thought it's the young generations alone. That's why we can see that much of the wealth of today is much more in the young hands. It should not be taken granted that it should be just for themselves. But what is more important, we should take into consideration that the wealth we are talking about in Namibia, these are the resources we have, is for all the Namibians. And that's why you can see that some people of the quotas, I'm not saying about all of them, in the young generation groups, you find out that they don't want to become rich quicker. Become rich quicker. And even how much you are going to give them, they are not appreciating. They need more and more and more to enjoy the fruit of independence.
Absolutely. Unfortunately, Tatnawonga, we've run out of time, but thank you so much for, and Vellum, of course, and Emma on the line. Thank you so much for being generous with your time to share your stories and your thoughts and your dreams and aspirations for this story. I think there's still so many things that we can discuss right here on Situation Critical, but unfortunately, time is something we have no control over. But once again, thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right. Before we go, we always have an African proverb, and this one goes as follows. It is better to eat mutete. The original version actually said it's better to eat mushrooms, but mushrooms are quite expensive in Namibia. So we used mutete. It's better to eat mutete in freedom than to eat meat in slavery. Now, meaning many people today don't realize that they are in a form of slavery, mental slavery. Harriet Tubman once said, "I freed 1,000 slaves. I could have freed 1,000 more if only they knew they were slaves." Mental slavery is when we rely on propaganda instead of thinking for ourselves, accept lies as truth, and prefer convenience over conviction. True freedom comes with responsibility. An inconvenient freedom is far better than a comfortable slavery. So be liberated. Until next time, remember the tagline, Situation Critical, Minds Philosophical. Peace and love.